You know, for decades, we've had this one big metaphor for the human mind, a computer. But what if that's just fundamentally wrong? What if the mind isn't some machine we build, but a dynamic system that actually grows? Let's dive in and explore a completely different way of thinking about our minds. So let's just start with that big question right there. We're always saying our brains process information, or that we need to reprogram our habits. I mean, that language is everywhere. But does it really get at what's going on up here? Or is it maybe, just maybe, blinding us to a reality that's so much more interesting?
So this old model, it's got a name, computationalism. And the idea is pretty simple. Your brain is basically biological hardware running cognitive software. It takes in an input, crunches the numbers, and gives you an output. It's neat, it's tidy, and as we're about to find out, it's just not the whole story, not even close.
Okay, so the real problem with the whole computer idea, it really comes down to a huge misunderstanding. We have a habit of using the words complicated and complex like they mean the same thing, but in science they mean vastly different things. And that difference, it's everything.
Think of it like this. A jet engine is complicated. It has thousands of parts, but you can take it apart, study each piece, and put it all back together again. The relationships are clear. But the brain? Oh, that's complex. The word itself literally means woven together. You can't just take it apart to figure it out, because the really important stuff, like consciousness itself, it just vanishes when you do.
And this really hits the nail on the head. In a complex system like our brain, the magic isn't in any single neuron. Nope, it's in the crazy, almost infinite web of connections between all of them. That's where thought and feeling and consciousness are actually born. So if the brain isn't a complicated machine, then what is it? Well, we need a whole new way of looking at it. And that's where this new field comes in. It's called Cognitive Science as Complexity Science, or CSCS for short. And it gives us a brand new lens to understand the mind. So at the heart of all this is complexity science. And the key idea here is something called irreducible order. Think about a flock of birds swirling in the sky, right? There's no lead bird up front yelling out orders. That beautiful flowing pattern of the flock only exists when all the individual birds are interacting. You can't look at one bird and say, there's the flock.
And that amazing thing we just talked about, it has a name, emergence. And honestly, this is one of the most mind-blowing ideas in all of science. Your own consciousness, the feeling of being you, it emerges from the simple interactions of billions of neurons, and not a single one of them is conscious on its own. It's a property of the whole system working together.
Okay, another huge piece of the puzzle here is that complex systems are non-linear. A simple machine is linear. You put in a little effort, you get a little result. You put in a lot, you get a lot. Simple. But the brain, whoa, it's totally different. A tiny, tiny input, I'm talking a single word or a half-forgotten memory, can set off this massive, unpredictable chain reaction of thoughts and emotions. That's where all the power and, the unpredictability of the brain comes from.
Okay, I know this might all sound super abstract, so how about we actually feel it? Let's make this real. We're going to do a simple little experiment where you can actually feel a core principle of complexity, self-organization happening in your own body.
We're going to do a little experiment based on something called the HKB model. Don't worry about the name, just get your 2 index fingers ready. And don't just watch, seriously, do this with me right now. It is so cool. All right, you ready? Here we go. Point your index fingers toward each other and just start moving them back and forth horizontally in opposite directions, kind of like windshield wipers. Got it? Okay, now slowly start to speed up. A little faster, faster, keep going, and whoa, there it is. Did you feel that? At a certain point, your fingers just switched all on their own and started moving in the same direction. You probably couldn't have stopped it if you tried.
So, what in the world just happened there? Well, in the language of complexity science, that thing you changed, the speed of your fingers, that's what we call the control parameter. You can just think of it as the stress or the pressure you're putting on the system.
And the system's amazing response to that pressure, that's the order parameter. That's the brand new, more stable pattern that just popped into existence. In this case, your fingers suddenly moving together in perfect sync. That, right there, was self-organization in action. Your brain didn't consciously decide, okay, time to switch. Nope, the whole system, your muscles, your nerves, your brain, it just found a better, more energy-efficient way to work under that pressure. Order literally appeared out of nowhere from the bottom up with no one in charge.
Okay, so that finger trick, that was way more than just a cool party trick.
It's a perfect model for how all kinds of complex systems change. And this idea has absolutely massive implications for how we understand our biggest problems, especially when the control parameter isn't speed, but something like stress. So let's apply this thinking to something really concrete and really complex, the connection between living in a big city and our mental health. This is a perfect example of a complex system, our body, interacting with another complex system, our environment. And when you look at the data, it's pretty shocking. I mean, look at this. Living in a city means a 21% higher risk for anxiety disorders, a 39% higher risk for mood disorders, and the risk for schizophrenia, it literally doubles. That is not a small change. Something really significant is going on here. But when you look at this through that complexity lens, it starts to make sense. The constant social stress of city life, that's the control parameter, just like the speed of your fingers. It's constantly pushing on our internal biological system. And that pressure leads to real, measurable changes. Our brain's fear center, the amygdala, it's just firing all the time. It even changes our immune system down at the genetic level, making us more prone to inflammation. Our body isn't just reacting moment to moment. It's actually reorganizing itself into a whole new stable state, one defined by high alert.
And really, this is the big takeaway from all of this. Your health, whether we're talking mental or physical, it's not like a part in a car that just breaks and you can swap it out. It is an emergent property. It's the dynamic, always changing result of a deeply complex system. That's you, constantly adapting to its environment. And so, all of this leaves us with a really big, really important question. Once we start seeing our minds, our bodies, and even our societies as these deeply interconnected, complex systems, it forces us to rethink pretty much everything. If our problems, from our own mental health all the way up to global issues like climate change, are complex to their very core, is it even possible for our solutions to be simple?